Just imagine for a moment your lungs as living tissue, as like almost like entities in and of themselves, like as if they have the same intelligence in them that is present in you, in your body as a whole. And imagine how might your lungs respond to aggression? How do you, on the whole, respond to aggression? How does your body respond when things are happening around you that are loud and fast and big? And what if your lungs responded in a similar way? Would that be supportive of being receptive? Imagine that you wanted to learn something. You went to a class to learn, and when you got to the class, there was really loud, aggressive music playing, and there were people all around you in fistfights, and bowling balls were being thrown around the room. Bright lights are flashing. Would you be in a receptive mode, able to easily receive what's being taught? I don't know what your answer to that is. I suspect many of you will have the realization that for you, you're it's not going to produce an optimal state for receiving. That aggressive, unconscious, big, fast is not conducive to being receptive for most people. So if your lungs were similar, then would an aggressive approach would more necessarily translate into being receptive? Or might it actually have the opposite effect? It's just something to explore. Now, with your lungs, you could notice, you could imagine what it's like. How do you breathe and how do you experience your lungs? What is the sense that you have of your lungs when you are feeling overwhelmed? You're feeling stressed. What happens? What is the experience? It might seem like a strange question because most of us don't think in that way. We don't usually think about our lungs, our experience of our lungs, how we conceive of our lungs or perceive our lungs. Seems like, for most of us, it seems like an odd question, but nonetheless, you might be surprised to notice that you're able to do it. So you could just notice if you were to imagine yourself right now in a situation in which you feel stressed or overwhelmed, just tune into what your experience of your lungs is. If you were able to see your lungs, what would they look like? What are words that come to mind to describe the quality of the experience of the lungs, the perception of the lungs? I'll just give you a moment with that. So just notice that. And then imagine yourself feeling what it would be like to feel calm, at ease, relaxed, connected. And notice in that situation, how do you perceive your lungs? What would they look like if you were able to see them? What words come to mind to describe them? And do you notice that they're different? That the state of the lungs or how you perceive the lungs is different in those different states? And isn't it interesting that people actually speak in this way when they finally are, and if they've been feeling stressed and then they are able to relax or they allow themselves to relax, then they'll often give voice to this. They'll say, oh, it's like I can finally breathe. Well, perhaps it's not just a figure of speech. Maybe it's not as if you can finally breathe. Maybe actually there's a real difference. And we all know that. And maybe we are giving voice to that, what we already know, that in different situations, we have the habit of actually altering the state and functioning of our organs. And when it comes to the lungs, perhaps sometimes that actually results in not breathing, even if the mechanical breathing may still be occurring. And I'm sure that if it was measured, there's still some gaseous exchange in the lungs. But if we go even further downstream, I'm willing to bet that there are changes that occur at all levels that actually reduce the flow. Because keep in mind, there's a whole process involved. So there might be a reduction in the flow to a certain extent within the lungs themselves. Then there might be an alteration or reduction in flow further downstream. And the actual subjective experience is there's a reduction of flow, there's a reduction of vitality, there's a reduction in the actual felt sense of the kind of abundance that we want. So, what I'm proposing that you are doing is that you are altering the state and functioning of all of yourself at the organ level, at the cellular level, at all levels, which blocks the flow or inhibits the flow of energy. And that it is a habit, but it is not actually serving you. And that it is possible to unlearn that habit or to learn a different habit because there is an intelligence in you that as soon as you fully recognize at all the necessary levels that there is in fact a better alternative, the old habit will fall away and the new habit will become established. And we've started that process already just through what we've done so far. So just by bringing awareness starts that process of change because it starts to allow you to recognize, first of all, what you're doing. Secondly, the consequences of what you're doing. And then we can start to bring some awareness and explore whether or not that's the best option or whether there might be better options.